Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Wednesday, March 26th, 2025. I am Dave Biddle. I'll be joined by Matt Baxendell in just a moment. Bunch of stuff to get into. It is going to be probably the craziest pro day in Ohio State pro day history. I do not say that lightly. All 32 NFL teams are not only going to be represented, we're hearing they're going to be heavily represented. Maybe not every team's going to be heavily represented, but all 32 will be there. All 15 guys that were at the combine, I think, will get drafted. And then today's a big day for a guy like G. Scott or Josh Fryer because they didn't get that invite to the combine. And if one of those guys gets drafted, then and all 15 guys from the combine get drafted, that means Ohio State's going to break the all-time record that Georgia set 3 years ago with 15 players drafted. So it's going to be crazy out at Pro Day today. Bax and I are going to get into that. We're also going to talk about spring, development so far. Curious to get Bax's take. I haven't talked to him in a couple weeks about this. I'm curious to get his take on spring ball so far. And Sam Greer is a Buckeye. Love that. All right, before we get into that, I want you guys to know about our friends over at Huel. Oh, yeah. We are thrilled to welcome Huel as our newest sponsor. The Huel Black Edition ready to drink is a meal in a bottle. Yeah, a meal that you drink. Okay, one bottle contains 35 grams of protein, 27 minerals and vitamins, and is low in sugar. Huel is a perfectly balanced meal designed by nutrition experts and takes the guesswork out of healthy eating. It's a great product, and we have a great deal for you guys. New customers, visit Huel.com today. Use my code Bucknuts to get 50% off your first order plus a free gift. Huel was designed by expert nutritionists as a convenient way to get all of the daily nutrients you need. Huel is amazingly convenient. No prep, no hassle, just grab and open. Cheaper than a coffee. When you think about what you'd be spending on takeout or meal deals, it's a no-brainer. And it tastes good. Because if it didn't, I wouldn't be having it. As you can see, I'm having their chocolate flavor right now. Yeah, I'm going to take a sip right now. Pretty good. Pretty good. All right. New customers, visit Huel.com/Bucknuts today and use my code Bucknuts to get 15% off your first order plus a free gift. Huel.com/Bucknuts. Use code Bucknuts to get 15% off your first order plus a free gift. Huel. There you go. You're a guy like Bax and you're always on the move, you're in the car and you're like, oh man, I need to eat, and I want to get some protein and some minerals and some vitamins. You just get some Huel. You can just have a meal in the car. I like it. Not like meal where it's getting messy and stuff, just a drink that's a meal. It's good stuff. All right. How you doing, my friend?
Dude, I'm doing excellent. Been a few weeks here. Glad to be back on the Morning 5 with you.
Yeah, man, it's good to see you. Let's start with Pro Day. It's going to be wild. Obviously, G. Scott, as I was saying, and Josh Fryer, big day for them. But I think it's a relatively big day for Will Howard. The film is paramount. His film that he put on in the playoffs, and he had a good regular season too, but he turned it on in the playoffs. I still am convinced he's going to be a second-round pick, even though some people now have him as a third-rounder. I think some team is going to take him in the second round. If your Steelers had a second-round pick, I'd say maybe your Steelers will take him in the second round. But your thoughts on Will Howard? Is it a big day for him? And just your thoughts overall about Pro Day?
Yeah, so Will Howard, I agree with you. Quarterbacks always go higher than you think, and he's going to be a guy that somebody's going to fall in love with. I think I've said on here since the season ended, I hope the Steelers take him in the third. So I guess we'll wait and see there. But I think for Will Howard, it's a huge day. First of all, the throwing he did at the combine with some receivers he wasn't as familiar with didn't go the way he wanted it to. So today he's got his group, which is the best receiving core in the country. You would expect that he would look very good. This is continuing the Ohio State tradition of underclassmen being thrown to. It sounds like Brandon Ennis is going to be out. Sounds like Carnell Tate's going to be out. So he'll have his crew to throw the ball to. So for Will Howard, this is a big day. And I think for Will Howard's sake, you want him to have a successful day here. I think that's probably the number one guy I was thinking about when Pro Day came around this week. There's some other guys, though, too. The guys that didn't get the combine invites. G. Scott's got to look good catching those balls from Will Howard today. It's a big day for Ohio State because, when you have this much talent, every single NFL team's going to be there. And probably not just one guy. I mean, you're going to have a giant crew of people there because there are so many players on this Ohio State roster that are going to be drafted this year, and some of those guys that are playing up that'll be high picks next year. Those are going to be, I would say today is probably the pro day main event of any school in college football.
Perfect timing. I forgot to mention what time it is. Question on YouTube. What time is the pro day today? Good question. 11 a.m. Eastern.
And Michigan still sucks. Oh, wait, sorry.
And I hope you guys are still basking. It's just a little over 2 months removed from the national freaking championships. I hope you guys are #still basking. But yeah, 11 a.m. at the WHAC today. We'll be there in full force of Bucknuts. I'll be there. Pat will be there. Steve will be there. Maybe even Dan Rubin will drive up because Dan loves his NFL. Maybe just to talk to Jerry. No, I don't think Jerry's going to be there, but we're going to. Dan
will walk in full Cowboys gear. He'll be ready.
That'd be hilarious. We see Jerry Jones there. All right, let's get into 11 a.m. today. We'll be there full force and we'll have full coverage for you guys. All right, attaboy, still basking. I love it, Buck Rational. I love it, Buck Rational. All right. Yeah, I mean, do you think G and or Josh will get drafted?
I think at least one of them will. Here's the reality. G. Scott had a great year. He's really taken a big step forward. If G. Scott gets picked, it'll be a 6th or a 7th round slot. But he's a guy who is a pretty athletic tight end. He's a guy who has good character factors to it, too. I won't be surprised if he gets picked. I think of the two of them, I think Scott's more likely than Fryer right now. But, what happens if Fryer puts up, 45 reps or something insane on the bench or moves better in the shuttle drill than expected? I mean, he is a multi-year starter on a national championship team. So, and for people at home who are wondering why we're talking about those two and not all the others, if one of those two gets picked, that should likely put Ohio State as the record of most guys drafted in a season based on combine invites. So I think G. Scott will get drafted. I'm not sure about Fryer.
All right, so it's going to be a big day. And, a lot of the guys – see, Emeka, I think, is going to do everything because he's got some of his wide receivers out there with him. Guys like Carnell Tate and Brandon Ennis are going to be out there to help Will out because really they only have Emeka. And now that I've seen some mock drafts have Emeka going in the 2nd round, I bet Emeka will do a lot today. Some of these guys that did really well at the combine, like let's take a Quinshon Judkins, for example. If I'm Quinshon's agent, you just ran a 4.4, was it a 4.48 or 4.45? Whatever.
It was 4.8. Yeah. Okay,
that's 4.48. So I thought anything under 4.5 at the combine would be great for Q at 220 pounds, and his film looks good. Because the one thing people were saying was, he got caught behind in the Notre Dame game. It's like, okay, so one time he got caught from behind. Kid's a tough 3-down back. Is he the blazer of blazers? No, but if he ran in the 4.4s combine, if I was his age, I'm like, do not run at pro day. Travion Henderson's going to run. I was surprised that he was only 4.43. 4.43. I would have bet he would have been sub 4.4. So, and it's a faster track, obviously, at pro day. So I think Travion will run. Quinshon, I don't think he'll do anything today or not much. I'm trying to think of some of the other guys that just showed out at the combine. But if you showed out at the combine, there's no reason for you to do much today. So we'll probably have some guys that do a lot and some don't. So we'll see. All right, moving right along. Before we get to spring ball developments, how about Tyler Bowen? He's proven very early on to be an excellent recruiter. I know it's early. Maybe I shouldn't say he's excellent, but so far so good. So far so great. And getting to know him, getting a chance to interview him a couple times, it's like, you can see why he's such a good recruiter. 35 years old, got a great personality, smart, and huge, 6'7". I don't know how much he weighs. He's a big boy. But getting Sam Greer, huge get yesterday for the Buckeyes.
I wrote about this last Sunday in the Bucket. It is so nice to have an offensive line coach that seems like he wants to recruit, right? That was the big knock on Fry, wasn't it? He did well with the coaching side, but you go back and you look, it's a bunch of 3-star kids from Ohio and Indiana. You're not going around the country and landing any players that are, big time elite national recruits. I mean, last year, what was our O-line recruiting? Ohio kids and try to get David Sanders. Like that's what it felt like. So now that you have a guy, coming in here in Bowen, who is 2 for 2 on landing big time Ohio linemen. And by the way, that was not a slam dunk guarantee. That was not like I saw somebody posted, oh, Jim Bowman could have got these two. There was a lot of noise about these guys leaving the state, right? And that's because at the end of the day, you have to still recruit these kids to get them to come. NIL has changed the game. Just because they're Ohio kids doesn't mean it's going to be that easy. Now you have these two. Let's see what other items that he can pull in recruiting. Look at Jackson Cantwell. I mean, he's been on campus a couple times now, I think. You pull that kid, he's the number one player in the country. All of a sudden, you're sitting in a position where you have a recruiting-focused O-line coach. And I know some people are going to say, well, let's not, bury Fry. I mean, Fry coached his butt off last season. He redeemed himself. We wish him luck at Arizona and the NFL. But at the end of the day, he didn't really seem like recruiting was his jam. And I believe Tim Drevno's still there. So if Tyler Bowen's offensive line chops or something that he needs any help with, you're still going to have him there as one of these, shadow staffs that we've been building Nick Saban style at Ohio State to help with the O-line and the coaching front. So at the end of the day, you've got a guy that is focused on talent acquisition. Again, Dave, is there any other position Ohio State recruited where it was just 3-star kids from Ohio and you were beating out Northwestern for a random Michigan kid? No. Every other position group, you're going all over the country to get the best kids, and you're making sure you lock down the best kids in Ohio. And this was something that maybe wasn't happening the last few years on the O-line. There's a big vibe shift right now on the O-line, and Tyler Bowen deserves all the credit in the world for it.
It's the classic, both things are true, right? When you're talking about Justin Fry, was he a good recruiter? No. Did he like recruiting? No. Was he a very good offensive line coach? Yes. Mm-hmm. Both things are true. And he said as much in his introductory press conference with the Cardinals. He's like, I can just focus on coaching ball. Like he was overly excited, basically saying, I don't have to deal with that crap recruit. Some guys like recruiting. They enjoy it. Now, does it wear on them sometimes? I'm sure it does. It's grueling. But some guys enjoy getting to know these kids and mentoring them, getting to know the mom and dad, and getting to know the family. So different strokes for different folks. And it's funny. If you're concerned, well, we're talking about Tyler Bowen as a recruiter. How's he going to be as a coach? Fair concern, because we know Justin Fry was a very good developer. Josh Simmons came here. No one thought anything of him. Now he's a first-round projection, even though he's coming off a season-ending injury. If he wasn't coming off that season-ending injury, he'd be a really high first-round pick. Seth McLaughlin came here. People are like, oh, okay, ho-hum. Oh, Remington Award. Then those guys go down and, season's over. Nope, Justin Fry's going to get that O-line playing well, and they're going to win the national championship. But he didn't like recruiting. But if you're concerned, well, we don't know how Tyler Bowen's going to be. That's fair. But like Bax said, unless something's changed, I just pulled up his Wikipedia page, which is always accurate, right? Tim Drevno is listed still as a quality control coach at Ohio State. That's a good guy to have as a quality control coach. Then what else did Coach Day do? He's just taking pages out of Saban's book, and I love it. He went and got 3 other guys, another senior analyst, the guy that was the offensive line coach at Oklahoma State last few years, Coach Dickey. He got a couple other guys, a guy that played at Penn State and played in the NFL, Coach Johnson, brought him in, and then another guy as well. So he has 3 extra guys, really 4 if Drevno's still here, helping out Bowen with the offensive line. I absolutely love it. I love everything Coach Day's doing, including winning the national championship a little more than 2 months ago. Still basking.
I think you also hit the nail on the head here, Dave, about the Nick Saban staff. So for everybody who doesn't understand, you're allowed to have, I believe, 10 paid assistant coaches. They're the ones who can recruit off campus. They're the official representative to the players. So why Tyler Bowen over all those other names that we just mentioned? I mean, Tim Drevno was a Super Bowl offensive line coach in the NFL. The reason is because Bowen's the recruiter. He's the guy who goes out and is the face of this group. But there's no limit to the number of, graduate assistants or, special assistants that you have that aren't allowed to coach on the field necessarily. And even that line's getting blurred right now. But those guys can come in and essentially a second coaching staff. Nick Saban used to have, Kevin Steele was his shadow defensive coordinator for like 3 years. He was paying him like $250,000 a year, something insane. And when you're at a place like Ohio State, and money really isn't a gigantic factor for things like this, and you can afford it, that's how you leverage your monetary advantage. You can't have more coaches, you can't have more scholarships than other people, but you can have more of these, GAs, these quality control analysts is what they call them. There's all kinds of little fake names, but the reality is it's more coaches. They're just not allowed to officially recruit. That's all it is. So do it. Get guys there as much as you can to help your guys who are your face of the position group to recruit.
All right, we're going to get to more Ohio State football in just a moment. I want to let you guys know about Bird Dogs. If you're listening to the show last couple of days, I was telling you about them on Monday. Dan was telling you about them yesterday. And I almost can't believe they're a sponsor of the show because I've loved wearing their clothes since I discovered them, I don't know what, at least 2 years ago. I love their lightweight hoodies. I love their shorts. And we got a great deal for you guys. Again, we're thrilled to welcome Bird Dogs as a sponsor of the show. For a limited time, our listeners get a free hat with any order when you use code Bucknuts at birddogs.com. Get the completely free hat when you use code Bucknuts at birddogs.com. Support our show. Tell them that we sent you. It's a great company. I mean, they've got – definitely check it out. And their shorts, let's talk about their shorts. We've all worn khaki shorts, I'm sure. They're usually kind of stiff, you know. Bird Dog shorts are markedly more comfortable than those stiff old khaki shorts that we've all worn. And they look a lot better too. And my friends, if you like golf, these are the perfect golfing shorts. If you look good, you feel good. We all know that. Did Dion invent that? I don't know. I don't know if Prime invented that, but it's true. If you look good, you feel good. Bird Dogs will make you look good and feel good. Again, for a limited time, our listeners get a free hat with any order when you use code Bucknuts at birddogs.com. Get the hat completely free when you use code Bucknuts at birddogs.com. Support our show and tell them that we sent you. All right. Bird Dogs. All right. Logan George, not a guy you probably expected me to bring up next. I bet if I gave you 100 choices of the next guy I was going to bring up, Logan George will not have come out of your mouth.
Not have been the first name.
But we met with Larry Johnson yesterday, and he said so far, because a lot of these guys, like he knew they were good. So far, the biggest pleasant surprise is Logan George. And further like, who am I talking about right now? He's the fourth-year junior defensive end who transferred in from Idaho State. The Bengals, the Houday of Idaho State, the Idaho State Bengals. So a big jump, but this young man had 6.5 sacks and led the Big Sky Conference with 19.5 tackles for loss last year. Huge jump going from Idaho State to Ohio State. We all know that. But he's not coming here to be a starter. Caden Curry and Kenyatta are going to be the starters. But, man, they really talked him up. And then obviously the obvious follow-up question back. So why is he the biggest pleasant surprise? What exactly is he surprising you with, LJ? And he's like, he's quick and powerful. He's got very strong hands. And he's like, we're excited about how we're going to use him and how he's going to help us this year. So same high school as Tommy Togiai, by the way.
Really?
Tackle. Yeah, it's Ponticello. I believe I'm pronouncing it correctly. Pocatello, Idaho. Anyway,
I thought it was Pocatello. Yeah.
Pocatello, Idaho. Bringing potatoes with him and everything. I like that. So Logan George, there you go. There's our top back. And CJ Hicks is running with the twos too. I was going to ask you about him. Logan George is looking good, and CJ Hicks making that move. Those are our second team DNs right now, and I like it.
Dude, CJ Hicks is getting the shift to the position group he needed to be in. If you ever watched him play, what was always our analysis of him at linebacker? It was, well, he was kind of indecisive and he was kind of thinking. And then it's like, and then he went after the quarterback and looked like a total monster. It's the Baron Browning treatment, except we took forever to put Baron Browning's hand on the ground. I mean, the guy was an NFL player chasing after the quarterback, but at OSU, they were trying to turn him into a decision-making middle linebacker. CJ's, I think, a little bit of the same way where, it's point, shoot, go, right, for him. And I think that the position group change for Hicks is a good thing. He's not going to be a huge DN. He's only 240-something pounds, but he's explosive. He's fast. He's a guy you want on the field on passing downs. I'm excited about that. And then, you know what? Now that we've had 2 Idaho players in the history of Ohio State football, when that transfer got announced, I think everybody was like, what? Why are we chasing that? Huh? Everybody was really, really thrown for a loop because it's like, we're Ohio State. We bring in big monster D linemen better than maybe anyone. And, there was one of those ones where I think you raise an eyebrow and I guess we'll see when they get here. I don't know. Well, now what we're seeing when you get here, maybe it was actually like a total steal. If he's already running with the twos, with all the depth we have, all the 5-star young talent. And by the way, there's something else to be said too, Dave, about being a grown-ass man. He's a redshirt junior at this point. That means he's 21, 22 years old. And when you're 22, you're a little more physically developed across the board. No, I'm not just talking about elite athletes. You're talking just human beings. So when you're 3 years older than some of these big-time younger guys that might have been building themselves up for 8-9 years, but still haven't finished growing yet, right? Still haven't finished fully physically maturing yet. There's something to be said about having a little bit of that old man strength. And so, I think it's going to end up being a pleasant surprise. I, for one, I'm really excited to get to see him because you don't have people talk up guys in his position very often.
We're all rooting for CJ Hicks. All of us. Everybody in the chat, unless we have any trolls, although the trolls seem to go away after the national championship for some reason, still basking. But everybody in the chat, you and I, everybody in Buckeye Nation is rooting for CJ Hicks. And I hope it works out. It's a smart move moving him to defensive end. I know they did. They're not just doing it in the spring. They did it toward the end of last year too. But as you mentioned, Baron Browning is a perfect example. So finally they're doing it. What do you think is going to work? I mean, we're all rooting for it to work out. Do you think it will work out?
I think he'll be a more effective player. I think his role will be sort of like we saw with Mitchell Melton last year. He's not going to be the starter guy, but if you bring him in passing down situations, you get him in a position where he gets upfield quick. That's where he's going to thrive. I think the big thing that's going to hold him back this year is just being big enough to hold up against the point of attack in a running game. You play somebody who's got the thought process that they want to run downhill. They're going to be saying, let's run over the smallest guy on the line. And I think that's the reason he's probably not going to start. He's not as big as Curry. He's not as big as Kenyatta. But I do think it should work. If you expect, if you define working as essentially taking the Mitchell Melton role, then yes, I think that will work.
I like that. I like that analogy a lot because it seems to me right now, unless CJ really comes on, Logan George will be the top backup defensive end based on what I heard yesterday. And he's more of that. You don't have to worry about him setting the edge. He's gone against, I know, different level. But, he's used to going up against tight ends. He's used to going up against offensive tackles and setting the edge. That's the one thing Larry keeps saying over and over about CJ. They're excited. They know he can rush the passer. They absolutely know he can rush the passer. Can he set the edge? They don't know yet. And they're not playing real football yet. They just put the pads on. They've had 2 days of padded practice, but they haven't been, tackling to the ground yet. So we'll see. We'll see. If CJ looks good out there, though. I'm rooting for CJ. Not just because he's a Dayton boy. That doesn't hurt the cause though. I like CJ personally.
Hey Dave, you know where the trolls went? They took away computer privileges at Ann Arbor, so no trolls right now.
The Matt Weiss effect. By the way, what a piece of crap. We knew
that whole program is just covering themselves in fecal matter the last few years, aren't they?
And I'm being kind calling him a piece of crap. We knew it was something serious when we heard the FBI was at his raided his house. It's like you don't do that if he was committing recruiting violations. And a lot of people were like, "Oh gosh, was it child porn?" It wasn't, because we also said if it was that, they just would have taken him. They wouldn't have messed around with that.
No, it was adult porn. That's what it was.
It's exactly what it was, but it was it's almost
ill-gotten gains
teetering on child porn, even though technically they're adults. When you're talking about 18-year-old female athletes in college, and he was doing it for a long time. How would he start doing it when he was with the Ravens? And of course, both Harbaugh brothers employed this clown. He's facing some serious prison time, and rightfully so. I hope he gets to prison and gets treated poorly, and I'm sure he will.
Oh, he will. But I'm going to tell you right now, you don't just learn computer hacking skills for fun because you want to perv on some girl's private, picture reel on the iCloud. Where does he learn these abilities? If he's doing it as a Ravens guy, did all the NFL teams have their practice video on clouds too? Did he learn how to do this professionally and then start putting it forward on his personal life? To me, all the rumors you've heard about them getting into practice video, and we know that practice video at OSU maybe hasn't been the most secure over the years because of a certain place that's no longer allowed to cover the team because of that. The reality is, did he learn all these computer hacking skills because he was trying to get an edge on pre-scouts when he was in the NFL and then realized, well, I can also use it for this? That's kind of, doesn't that seem like that's a decent way to connect the dots? And this opens up other questions related to the football scandal too. And obviously stealing the personal images of young women is a gigantic issue. They're already suing Michigan, it sounds like, some student athletes, and good for them. I hope they sue the hell out of them. But at the end of the day, I kind of think that there's more layers to this onion to be unpeeled that we're still just waiting on. I won't be shocked one bit if it comes out that they've had access to OSU's practice video for a couple years now from our cloud system at various points. And by the way, just as one more additional component to all of this stuff, doesn't it seem to all minds involved here that this is how they found out about the Stallions thing? That independent investigator that they hired up there clearly was brought in.
Ryan Day's brother. That was Ryan.
Well, that's just it. Yeah, they brought in Ryan Day's brother. Yeah. Some people owe a giant apology to Ryan Day's family for that up in Michigan. Once they get their computer privileges back, I'm sure they'll hop on and do that. But at the end of the day, this is probably how they found the Stallions thing. Yep. And it was because they brought in an independent person going, is anybody else perving on all these girls' pictures? Was anybody else involved? And they're like, hey, you got it crazy with the manifesto here. You probably ought to look into this one too.
The Ann Arbor cult up there. That's seriously what it feels like.
Why are we surrounded by cults?
Those ranks, and they just, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what the NCAA does. I don't know. We'll see.
Why are we surrounded by cults? We got one in Ann Arbor. We got one of Joe Paterno. I mean, like, what's going on here? Like, can we get some normal rivals? This would be great.
They're making Penn State look like very normal, comparatively speaking.
It's not good. That Penn State was much worse than this.
Oh, well, yeah, the Paterno stuff, yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, the Sandusky stuff, yes. Yeah, we don't need to rank them, but if we were, that would be number one, yes.
That's number one forever. I don't know how you get much worse than that.
Yeah. You couldn't get worse than that. Unbelievable. I just can't believe that this guy was doing it for this long. At least he finally got caught. He's going to be doing prison time, and like we're talking about, he's already facing civil lawsuits. Michigan's getting sued, so he's going to not only get a criminal situation, a criminal trial, he's going to get a civil trial when he eventually gets out of prison. I think that's
the civil trial against Michigan will be where all these young ladies get their money. They already filed a class action lawsuit. Michigan's going to owe millions of dollars. I mean, you're talking, if there's 100 student athletes that got their personal pictures hacked on a Michigan computer, Michigan's probably liable for $100 million.
That's what you and Matt are along the same lines here. Matt on Facebook says he heard that Matt Weiss and that team up north is going to get sued in the $100 million. That's exactly what Bax was just saying.
Mm-hmm. It just makes sense. The way they say 100, 150 student athlete girls. Like like Jane Doe, one was a gymnast, right? So, by the way, if you're watching, kids, don't take pictures. They go on a cloud, right? Don't take pictures. Just don't do it. Then this guy can't get anything. But B, now that they did that, I mean, you're looking at the individual payouts in a class action lawsuit, something like this, are going to be in the 5 to 10 million range a piece. You're looking at $100 million minimum that's going to come out of Michigan's coffers. And I don't think that comes out of the university fund. That'll come out of their athletic budget. That'll be my guess, especially the time where higher institutions of learning are struggling with maintaining federal funding for a whole host of other things we won't get into. If you're going to all of a sudden take another $100 million out of Michigan's budget, that either comes out of their athletic department or out of their endowment. You know how much these places love touching their endowments.
Jam OSU on YouTube. How did the girls know? I think when the authorities finally contacted them. Said,
yeah.
Hey, we're investigating this guy. We believe he's been stealing your hacking and has been stealing your pictures and gawking at them because he's a total piece of. Can I say? I'm just gonna say he's a total piece of shit. Matt White, total piece of bleep. And I know innocent until proven guilty, right? Well, this is not a court of law. Okay, that applies in a court of law. Okay?
Dave, here's a stat. Here's a stat for you on federal government cases when they bring criminal charges from the federal government against people. It is a 99% conviction rate. The federal government literally only misses in one instance, and the dude's in the Oval Office. So at the end of the day, this guy's going to jail. All right, let's be real honest. He's going to jail.
And we're not talking about the two young ladies that have sued already. If it was just those two, that'd be bad enough. There's they have hundreds of people.
Yeah.
They have hard evidence on. And this is not, I don't need to wait for a trial. I'm sorry. I'm not the judge, so I'm not on the jury. I don't need to wait for the trial.
Yeah, we're not going to get called to be jury duty here. We're already new.
If I'm wrong, I'll come back on here and do a mea culpa, I promise. I won't be doing that mea culpa because I'm not wrong. You know what else is not wrong? Let's move on. Julian saying, I know he's getting second team reps now, but are you with me where I'm really glad Lincoln's here, and I think if Lincoln needed to play, because he looks good. Lincoln is now entering his third year of just playing football after playing so many different sports and being awesome at all of them, and he looks good. He's running with the ones, and I'm glad he's here. So this is not a knock on Lincoln, but man, Bax, what those guys said at the combine, especially a guy like Denzel Burke, who's not afraid to tell you what he thinks. Like when last year this time, we asked him about Will Howard. He's like, I need to see more out of Will Howard. It's like, oh, damn. And then at the combine, he was asked about Julian Sand. He basically said, this is paraphrasing, oh, yeah, Julian Sand's going to be the man. Even Will Howard said something like that, and other guys as well. Game knows game. So when those guys that just won a national championship and are about ready to go to the NFL are saying, yeah, Julian Sand's the man, kind of tells me everything I need to know.
Mm-hmm. And if you go back to when the whole process of Ohio State bringing him in was going on, a year and a half ago or whenever it was, right after Nick Saban retired, and we had just signed Aaron Nolan, and OSU went through like a 2-day process of, do we have the ability to bring in Julian Sand? Should we bring in Julian Sand? They kind of went through an exercise of, how do I find a reason to say no to this? And they couldn't find one because he's just that good. He made the program better. And I know last year in the spring, everybody's like, ooh, super duper star, number 1 or 2 in the country quarterback. Let's see him in the scrimmage situations. And maybe he didn't look like a superstar at that point. He was just out of high school. He had enrolled early for spring practice. And now he's had a whole year under his belt. He's gotten stronger. He's already a big-time prospect coming in. I think you don't hear players talk like this about a guy unless he's shown it in practice nonstop. Now, job's not officially his yet. Ryan Day is notorious for dragging out quarterback competitions as long as humanly possible. This has been a long-standing Ryan Day trend where he's like, yeah, Justin Fields might start, but we're not sure yet. And then he waits till like August and it's like, of course he was starting, right? So I think what you're looking at here is a situation where Lincoln Kienholz is a great football player. Lincoln Kienholz in a vacuum, this might have been his year. Let's say that, we hadn't landed Julian Sand and you still had Aaron Nolan, and you still had, Devin Brown, and you still had Lincoln Kienholz. I would have came into this spring thinking Kienholz was the guy to beat. If you look at his resume, he's literally a champ at everything he does. He's a winner. And he was playing South Dakota high school football, so it was going to take him a year or two to catch up. Don't hold that old Cotton Bowl game against Missouri where we didn't have anything more than an Olay offensive line in front of him. Right. Like the reality is he's a great football player too. But there's a certain point where if you have somebody who's just that good, they have to play, and that's going to probably be Sand this year. It just seems like that's where this is going.
And like others have said, Lincoln, if it does pan out that way, Lincoln's one play away from being super important. He'll be the starting quarterback. People are like, what about Tavian St. Clair? Listen, I'm very impressed with him. As a young man, I was already impressed with his physical traits. We're out there, first practice is like, okay, some of these guys listed at 6'5" in high school, they come in, they're more like 6'3",
Yeah.
They list him at 6'4", but he looks like he's 6'5". He's throwing the ball well, just physically strong. He's going to be a good one here. Be patient with him, though, because he's from a small high school in Bellefontaine. Here's what else I love about Tavian St. Clair. He should be getting ready for his high school prom right now, Bax. He carries himself like a grown man, like a very mature, and that's so important at quarterback. You can just see he just oozes leadership at the age of 17, 18, whatever he is, and very, very, very good personality and kind of an old soul. And I mean that as a compliment. So it was really cool getting a chance to interview Tavian last week. And I think he's going to be a good one here, my friends. But I do think he'll be the third stringer this year for those that are wondering. That's just my guess.
He's going to redshirt. And that you hit the nail on the head about him with being from a smaller school. He's able to rely a little more on his athletic gifts. He's a guy who could really use a year redshirting, learning behind the scenes, learning how to study film, all the things that you talk about that he has to build in his toolbox. He has so many physical gifts, but he now has to learn the study side, the offense. He has to learn how to read the defenses. He has to learn on some of these touch passes because his arm's such a cannon that he being able to float the ball into the right spots is something he's going to have a little bit of process on. He's a guy that probably won't play much, if at all, this year. Next year, he's then it'll give him 2 years of full separation behind Sayan. So Sayan will probably be in a big picture look. If Sayan starts this year, he'll start next year. And you would think after 2 years, he's looking to move on to the NFL if he's as successful as we think he'll be. And then after that will be when Tavian St. Clair is probably the guy that takes over. And I think that's the plan that he understood when he committed to Ohio State was, you might not start the first year or two, but year 3 and 4, that's going to be your time to shine. And as a quarterback, in the NFL, I think the number one thing that they look for is he started more than one season. I mean, this is called the Achilles Smith rule. The more games he's played in college, the more likely he is to succeed at the higher level because he's gone through that level. Yeah. I don't know where Achilles Smith was drafted, Dave, but we'll blame him on Oregon for sucking.
Yeah. And it came out he could only read half the field. Good job, Bengals, taking a guy that can only read half the field, number 3 overall. But we got a good quarterback now, so I'm good with it. All right, my friend. Great stuff. Great stuff, Bax. Appreciate it, my man.
Hey, glad to be on here, Dave. It's been a fun spring so far for the Buckeyes. I can't wait to see the spring game.
Let's go, buddy. And now, and Coach Day now said it's basically going to be a spring game, which I was, why are they calling it a spring showcase? It hasn't been a real spring game in forever anyway. It's been a spring showcase. And I'm so glad for those that missed it, Coach Day basically said it's going to be just like the spring games of the past. Same thing. Yeah. Nothing's going to change unless he gives himself some wiggle room, unless they get ravaged by injuries. But they're not even really hitting in practice. So hopefully they don't get ravaged by injuries. So there you go. We're going to have the spring game on April 12th. Great stuff, Bax. Appreciate it, my man.
Go Bucks.
Go Bucks. All right. Before I get out of here, I want you guys see my new wallet, Yeah, that's a wallet. Yeah, thing. Yeah. Now you see it, now you don't. Boom. All right. I love this. Ridge Wallet. We can get you guys a great deal. Holds up to 12 cards. Credit cards, whatever, business card, whatever you need. You have a little cash strap back here, so you just put your cash back here, and it's just so cool. And great conversation piece, too. In fact, I was at Hollywood Casino this past weekend during March Madness, and there's a former Ohio State football player sitting with us. And I don't know if he wants me to mention his name, so I'm not going to mention his name. Probably wouldn't care. And I'm telling him about this cool wallet, that I got, and that they're one of our sponsors of our podcast for Bucknuts. I'm telling him about it, and I'm like, it's really cool. And he's like, yeah, it does look cool. Pulls out the exact same thing. He had his own Ridge wallet, so he's like, I think he had a little bit more money in his than I did, but hey, that's how it goes. But Ridge wallet's really cool, and we can get you guys a great deal. Right now, Ridge is having their once-a-year anniversary sale. Get up to 40% off at ridge.com/Bucknuts. Just head to ridge.com/Bucknuts to see their biggest sale of the year. After you purchase, they will ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them that our show sent you. I'm going to read that again. Right now, Ridge is having their once-a-year anniversary sale. Get up to 40% off at ridge.com/Bucknuts. Just head to ridge.com/Bucknuts to see their biggest sale of the year. After you purchase, they will ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them our show sent you. 40% off for this cool wallet. Ooh, that's pretty nice. That's pretty nice. I bet my buddy, the former Ohio State player, wishes he got that 40% off. Maybe he's going to get another one, and he'll get that 40% off. So there you go. So cool. Get that thing. Woo. All right. Great stuff from Bax. Pro Day today. It's going to be insane over there. Keep it locked to Bucknuts. We'll have you guys covered. Very lively chat today. Thank you for everything. Really, really appreciate you guys. As always, I recognize almost all the names in the chat, which is really cool. After we've been doing the Bucknuts Morning 5 for forever. We were the first Ohio State podcast, which is crazy because now there's 4 million Ohio State podcasts. In fact, initially we were calling it internet radio because we didn't even know what a podcast was, and then we transitioned. It was then called a podcast, but we didn't start doing it video on YouTube till 2 or 3 years ago. And then we finally took it to YouTube. We were a little late to the game on YouTube after being the first Ohio State podcast. But being on YouTube and Facebook, doing it live, and Twitter is a lot of fun, and it's been cool to kind of get to know you guys. If you ever see me out, if you ever are at a game, wherever, make sure you come up and say hi if you want to. I'd love meeting you guys. So thanks to Bax, thanks to all of you, and hope everybody has a great day. Again, keep it locked to Bucknuts. We're going to have full coverage of Pro Day and more. Go Bucks.